Oh my god. Hey guys, what's going on? Chris here as always with Shughead Gaming, and welcome to my review for Detached, developed by Anshar Studios and released on PlayStation VR on July 24th for an estimated price of $30. And of course, that's depending on your region. Trapped in an abandoned space station, you must race against borrowed time to find your crew before your oxygen supply runs out. As you solve puzzles to open airlocks, locate power cores, and disable transmitters, something tells you that you won't be alone when you finally escape into the universe's deep infinity. This was a game built from the ground up to take full advantage of the best things about VR. Does it succeed? Let's find out. As always guys, if you like this video, please hit that like button. And if you want to see more PSVR content from me, please consider subscribing. And for updates, hit that bell icon. As always, graphics are up first. Detached sets out to recreate the sensation of zero-G space movement. The visuals here are designed to give that sense of movement a basis in reality. The space station you find yourself learning to fly around in feels realistic and like something based out of a near-future reality. Corridors, panels, and airlock hatches all look fantastic from whatever angle you might find yourself looking at them from. Up close, everything looks sharp and clear, with display panels being easy to read. Anti-aliasing could be a bit better though, as from afar, and when not moving, the jagged edges are fairly visible. Pro support would be a nice addition down the road, as I don't believe Detached has this at launch. This being said, jagged edges aren't much of an issue once you're in motion, and you almost always are, so this really doesn't become much of an issue. Visually, this game really shines once you get past the initial training area and first head out into open space. The sensation of unhinged floating when combined with the visuals in front of me gave me a holy shit moment I haven't had since my first day with my PSVR. Space feels big, and solid ground away from my pod felt far away. When combined with the excellent lighting of the sunlight cresting a nearby asteroid field, I was in awe. Exteriors of space stations and the nearby meteors looked great up close and really coming off as 3D rendered objects and not the flat assets we've seen used in similar genre titles. Space station hubs are even detailed enough to fly in and around their architectural outcroppings. This will come in handy in multiplayer, but more on that later. The whole experience is really driven home by the silky smooth frame rate and excellent visual design of the helmet you wear. Look around and you can see and feel the confines of the EVA suit you're wearing. The glass with its heads-up display reminds you that you are very alone in your suit, and this slight sense of claustrophobicness really elevates the whole experience. Other effects like your personal shield bubble, missile trails, and the cracks that appear in your face shield are all nice touches, and it's stuff like this that can be seen everywhere. This may be an indie game, but it's hitting way above its weight class, and with the exception of some jagged edges and some repetitive textures, this is a very nice looking PSVR game that looks almost bit as good as the highly touted PSVR launch game, Eve Valkyrie. And that brings us to sound.
Low fuel. Low oxygen. No fuel. No oxygen.
The sound design here really works, and that is primarily due to two big factors the sound designers nailed. First and foremost is the sounds your EVA suit makes. The sound of your thruster burns are recreated spectacularly here, with long hard burns and short balancing bursts all coming off brilliantly authentic, and really making me feel like I was recreating a scene from a great sci-fi movie. This, when combined with whistles, chirps, and notifications of your in-suit computer, it really sells the whole spacesuit experience. The second aspect of the sound that the team nailed here is that of the music. Watch any great science fiction movie, and it's the music that sells the experience. Here, Detached nails this, as the music is epic, daunting, and eerie all at the same time. I did find the music a little high in the mix, but once I adjusted that a bit, I found it the perfect soundtrack to the experience as I was having floating through space. Other aspects of sound, including the voice work, which serves to move the narrative forward, all come across incredibly well and really help to round out a nice overall sound package in Detached. Gameplay's up next. Detached is all about the feeling and control of zero-G movement in space. When you first start the game, you'll be met with the choice of a few different control schemes. The first, aptly titled Arcade, is what I strongly recommend for anyone who even remotely experiences VR sickness. All three control options are effectively the same, but it is here in arcade mode that the real-world inertia and accelerations are mostly off. This will ensure that you only move when you want to move and make control in arcade mode fairly easy with its stop-start control. Astronaut is the next step up and introduces inertia. Now, when you turn or spin, you continue in that direction until you counter the move or use the newly introduced option to break your movement with the click of L3. This addition of natural inertia not only makes movement significantly more difficult, but it will also hit the ejector seat on your stomach if you suffer from the previously mentioned VR sickness. Personally, this is when the game started to be fun for me, as I'm always looking for VR to really push the experiences on me. But you have been warned. Now, for people like me who really enjoy the rush and experience of full-on VR, the third choice, appropriately titled Simulation, is likely going to be where you play the game. This retains the natural inertia, but now adds realistic acceleration and deceleration, as well as a new button in the click of R3 that'll help break this movement. This is where things get really fun, for if you burn your boosters too long or hard, you may not stop when you want, and instead find yourself dead with a broken face mask or drifting endlessly outside your intended area in open space. Again, simulation mode is not for VR newbies or those with weak stomachs, as this mode feels like a full-on theme park ride, and it's fucking awesome. After a quick movement tutorial where you can test out the previously mentioned movement schemes and see what works for you, you'll be introduced to the story setup via some motion comic cinematics, and sent on your way. Detached is made up of 2 primary levels with a few stages in each. The bulk of the game will have you managing your fuel and oxygen resources while crossing open space and completing objectives within the pieces of an abandoned space station. Levels consist of light puzzle solving and suit-to-ship and suit-to-suit combat in open space. But the bulk of the game really all boils down to world navigation in zero-G. Detached can be beat in 2 to 3 hours, and while I do wish there was more game here to wrap around this amazing sense of movement in space, I truthfully could just spend time drifting and spinning in space. In fact, I'll return for just that. Words really cannot do this game justice for the sense of weightlessness it manages to create in the higher leveled control schemes. Control isn't easy, and it has a high learning curve, and it should. My poor grasp of the controls was really brought to light when I decided to take the online modes for a spin. In online multiplayer, I was able to join up with up to 4 people and partake in either an open space version of Capture the Flag or a space race through a ringed out obstacle course. In both modes, my limited understanding of using missile locks, my personal suit shield, and booster rockets made for a lot of laughs and broken helmets. Throw in the eagerness to win and forgetting about natural inertia, and I often found myself drifting or watching a friend drift endlessly out into space. Multiplayer is fun as hell and totally unique, and it's a real shame that it seems to be tagged on as an afterthought in Detached. There's no party matchmaking, no group chat, and no ability to choose your map or mode of play. You simply choose a control difficulty and see what you get auto-matched up with. Unfortunately, this will kill what could be a great multiplayer experience, just like what happened with the previously released Code 51 Mecha Arena. I really hope this gets rectified in a patch, but with this game being available already for a while on PC VR, this seems very unlikely. Unfortunately, Detached only supports the DS4 controller at launch, with no support for the motion controls that our PC VR counterparts got. This can be played seated or standing, but I strongly recommend sitting, as even VR veterans will likely have their heads spun with this one. Minimal space is required to play this game, and for those with VR sickness issues brave enough to still try this out, you will find additional comfort settings like vignette control and flight controls that put forward and backward thrust controls to the trigger buttons. And that brings us to fun factor and my final verdict. Since I got my headset almost 2 years ago, I've noticed that I often am spoiled by the awesomeness that is VR. Rarely do I find myself in absolute awe of what I'm experiencing like I did in the early days of playing my PSVR. Detached reminded me what that felt like, as I found myself spinning end over end in open space with the sun-drenched meteors as my only point of reference. The smile across my face must have looked ridiculous. This is why I bought VR, and this is why I loved playing this game so much. Yes, I wish there was more game here to enjoy this experience in, but this really didn't detract from my enjoyment of this game. As you know, I rate games on a scale of buy, wait for a sale, or burn it to the ground. At $30, this isn't a cheap VR game, and for some, the amount of game here just doesn't justify the cost. For me, though, this is an absolute buy. But buy it for the experience and sensation of flight. For those who want more story or more to do than navigate space stations and meteor fields, and especially those who suffer from VR sickness, you may want to wait for a sale on this one. But if you're like me and you bought VR to be blown away, this is for you. As always, guys, if you like this video, hit that like button. And if you want to see more PSVR content from me, please consider subscribing. And for updates, hit that bell icon. That's it for me, and I'll catch you guys on my next video.